Welcome to the Forever Better Academy podcast, where you will be given the principles, tools, and techniques to reach the next stage on your journey of self-mastery. Who could you become? I'm your host, Wade Vincent. Hey guys, welcome back once again. Minor tweaks can have a massive impact. Now, for those of you that aren't quite sure what it means when you look at the title of today's episode of the Forever Better Academy podcast, I love coffee. Absolutely love coffee. And it never started out that way. So I want to tell you guys a story today, right? So I just never was interested in coffee. And when I was driving trucks, especially in food service, early morning deliveries, and just throughout the day, you're pretty much always, dealing with either hotels or cafes or restaurants. So especially in the early morning runs, a lot of times as just a nice gesture, the customers would come to you and say, hey, would you like a coffee for the morning? They just give you a free coffee. And I was always of the impression, even if you didn't want something, someone's offering you a kindness, just a free drink, you don't turn it away. Take it, and then if you don't want it, then you don't want it. But they're never going to offer you again if you start saying no to free things, right? So I would take the coffee, and sure enough, over time, you keep drinking it, and you start to maybe say get addicted to it, but enjoy it, and it's a nice way to start the morning, and especially when I was doing, 5 a.m. starts and driving 2 hours up the Sunshine Coast to, coffee sort of was breakfast, especially on those ones. So this has been sort of over the last maybe 5 years. And so recently, with everything else going on and lockdown and COVID, I was like, I drink so much coffee, I'm going to buy an espresso machine. I know, saying it out loud sounds absolutely ludicrous, you're in lockdown, so what do you want to make sure you've got? I have gym equipment in the house and a coffee machine, right? And internet connection. So, all good, can survive. It's all good. So I bought an espresso machine. Now, drinking coffee and making coffee are two very different things, right? It's I have a newfound appreciation for the baristas that would make coffee for me on a daily basis. So when you are, and this is a story I want to sort of dive into, because I think there's some good lessons in this that I thought would be interesting to share with you guys. So when you're first making coffee, and I spent a little bit of time, watching a lot of YouTube videos as you do, and asking people questions, and even, local cafes and whatnot, and finding out where to buy good beans from and everything else. So when you get a machine, for those of you that may not be aware, like I wasn't, you buy, say, new whole coffee beans that have been roasted, and you have to go through a process of what's called dialing in. So you take the beans and you sort of perfect the level of the grind, and sort of the goal is to extract a coffee shot that isn't too bitter or too sour or weak or under extracted. You're just trying to find that that right sort of middle ground that brings out the best flavor and strength of the coffee. So when you buy different beans, because they have a different roast profile, it's not always going to be the same sort of a coarser grind or a finer grind. So it's different. So the first time you get a new bag of coffee beans, you have to experiment a little and tweak it till you sort of get that optimal grind to deliver the best extraction of the coffee, right? So the whole idea is really like you want to get the most flavorsome coffee you can, right? You're not making coffee it's very different to like an instant coffee or a pod machine where you just I've had those machines too. Like I started out instant coffee in hot water, got those little capsule pod machines like Light Nespresso, those kind of machines, and and then graduated onto an actual espresso machine, and you can very easily make a consistent coffee on a pod machine, right? It's all done for you. It's optimal pressure, the amount of coffee in the pod, it all just works, right? With an espresso machine, you can have the best machine, the best beans, the best intentions, but it doesn't always work out, right? You can have everything in place and make a horrible cup of coffee. Now, it's easy to mistakenly think that this process is easy to master because like you've seen other people. You go to a cafe and you watch someone make a coffee. It doesn't look complicated, right? It looks pretty straightforward. You watch the person. They put some coffee from the grinder into the portafilter, pack it down with the tamp, and put it into the group head into the machine. Extract the coffee, pour some milk. It's a pretty picture on the milk, and you have a delicious coffee. And you think, well, it doesn't look that hard. The machine does most of it for me, right? No, does not. Maybe if you have like a fully automated machine, but I'm talking a proper, do-it-yourself maker coffee, and it's so valuable, I think. And this is why I want to share this story with you guys today, is because the real importance of appreciating the process, right? Understanding what you're up against and how to dial it in, right? So, and this is especially in my case. I don't know how other people are, but whenever I look at something, I just go, yeah, I should be able to do that. I don't know if it's just because I grew up in a privileged country and I'm a white male, and I just think, well, I could probably do it. Or maybe most men feel that way, most women feel that way. I don't know, but from my perspective, I look at most tasks and think, yeah, I could do it. And there's a lot of, it's naivety around that, because something that looks easy, especially as you feel like, I'm a fairly capable human being, and for whatever reason, I seem to think that I can automatically do things just because, and it serves me in one way that it encourages me to take on new things and try new things, because I feel confident and capable to try them, at least, right? But even things that appear simple require practice to master. And this was the same for me. If you've ever tried to reverse a car with a trailer, towing a trailer behind it, first time I thought, yep, yeah, I can do that easy. I've driven trucks before. It's just reversing a trailer. How hard can it be? And the trailer turns sort of the opposite way of how you turn the steering wheel. And the first few times I was just so frustrated and devastated at my lack of ability, or my natural ability to reverse a trailer. I don't know why I can't do this. So similar kind of thing, right? So when I started with the coffee machine, right? So I had no idea what I'm doing, right? I've watched a few videos, and this is an important point to make. This is two very different things between watching somebody do something and understanding the steps or the process versus actually doing it and it becoming instinctual and you mastering it and knowing how to really do it. Knowing the steps isn't knowing how to achieve something. Like, you can watch, let's say, a blacksmith forging a sword. You could watch that process and you understand the steps to take, but that doesn't mean that you're a blacksmith. It doesn't mean that you can do it, right? So when you start out and you're trying to dial in this coffee, taken the beans and like, I'm super nerdy on this and meticulous, so I've got little scales and take a double shot of coffee and weighing out the say 18 grams of coffee beans, like just ridiculous. Like I'm super nerd on this. And at the beginning, especially I did, waste tons of coffee beans, just wasting them. Not literal tons, but you get what I'm saying. Is you grind some beans, and then before you sort of have the right tools, like I didn't have the scales, and I'm just grinding for a certain amount of time and hoping that that's enough coffee, and then I had to figure out, was that a right amount of coffee, and then was the grind too fine? Was water flowing too quickly through the coffee puck? Was the pressure right, that it's extracting the right flavors? When I get the grind right, but then maybe I put too little coffee, so it's very hard to determine what are those little tweaks. How do you dial in? What are the little changes that make the as I say, the small changes can have a massive impact on things. So you don't have any experience to build upon when you start, and that's okay. You have to go through all these mistakes and misunderstandings and errors to have the right foundation to build upon. I easily, like, I've barely had the machine not even a month, say, and gone through kilos of coffee beans. Like I drink a fair few coffees, but also the amount that I wasted. And you until you sort of make those errors, and this is why these errors are so important, because you have to make those mistakes in order to understand why they're mistakes, right? It's one thing when someone says, don't grind the coffee so fine for espresso. And you're like, okay, cool, don't grind the coffee so fine. And then when you grind it too fine and you see what happens because of that error, you understand why that's important, why that matters, why that's not the correct process, right? So mistakes, have you ever heard the saying, fail forward, right? Mistakes are actually success. It's not really a mistake in the bigger picture, because it's moving you forward along the path where you're trying to go and what you're trying to achieve and what you're trying to learn. So once I started to get my head around it and get my hands around it, which is, especially being an ex-chef, once you sort of, there's this knowledge in your hands when you do something long enough. Any artist, like when I was a graffiti artist, the can control, when you know the pressure, how hard to push and where to hold the can away from the wall or close to the wall, and just how to maneuver, it becomes an extension of your body, right? And science has proven these, like the way your brain sort of interacts with the tools. This is a huge part of why humans have become the dominant species on the planet and evolved in the way we have. So the true realization I have going through this process with dialing in my espresso is ultimately, as I said, when I looked at it and assumed that it was easy because I'd seen people make it look easy, I learned that I had to respect the art form. First and foremost, anything that you're trying to achieve, I think, is a critical step for you, or for all of us, when you're learning to master something. If you begin with the appropriate respect for the art form or the craft, you will proceed and progress much faster in picking up the skills and the habits, because you're paying it the care and the attention due, right? So I started to understand, the result is in the discipline. The more that I do this, the more bad coffees that I make, the more mistakes, the more errors that I make are getting me closer to that perfect coffee, that excellent coffee, that better than average coffee, that drinkable coffee, right? That was the start. I was happy to just have one that was, didn't taste like dirt and like, burnt toast, right? So, got the hang of it, and now I by no means am I exceptional at this, and nor do I expect to be after a month, but I know how to consistently make myself a nice coffee now, and I can enjoy it and waste a little less coffee beans on a daily basis. So once you learn that real respect for the art form, it's a huge leap forward in understanding and giving yourself that foundation to build upon to ultimately master that discipline or art form you're trying to master. So I took a plan of action to study the craft, learn the craft, and master the craft. Now this is something that just it's just me. This is who I am. I'm very much driven by a sense of mastery. So anything that ignites some sort of curiosity or excitement or passion in me, I dive in. I want to go all in. I want to understand why. I want to know how things work, how it operates, why it does that. What are the outcomes, and what do I learn about the discipline and the art form or the craft, and what do I learn about myself on the way, right? So at first, you don't really realize the importance too. This is an important thing as well, I think, that I almost forgot to mention. You don't realize the importance of using the right ingredients or quality ingredients or the right tools, right? So this goes back to that point. It's almost twofold, right? When I said earlier, you can use the best coffee machine, the best beans, perfect temperature, perfect grind, and still get it wrong because you don't understand the art or the flow of it or the order or the technique and the ritual of it, right? And then the inverse of that is you can understand completely the craft. It's instinctual. You know how to navigate through the process and get to the end of what you're trying to do. And if you have all the wrong tools and ingredients, it won't work out anyway. So it's like there's this, it's that, like everything, yin and yang, the balance, that there's always two pieces to it, right? And this was the start. When I first, one of the things that, as I said, I almost forgot to tell you guys, when I first got the machine, there was a place locally that I go to that would serve Vittoria coffee. And when it, just for sort of, the sake of the podcast, whenever I mention a brand at this point, there's no sponsorship or incentive to talk about this. I just like to tell you straight. So it's not that I'm, what would you call it? Endorsing any particular brand. I tell you how it is, okay? So there's nothing behind it. And I used to like this coffee that they use Vittoria coffee at a local cafe that we go to, and it was nice because sometimes the over the top artisan coffee, it gets so ridiculous. It doesn't even taste like coffee anymore. I just want a coffee, like I want full body, strong, robust flavor, and has like a nice aftertaste. It's just it's got to have something to it, body. Like I don't want a coffee that tastes like frangipanis and the smell of lavender. Like if I wanted that, I'd eat some flowers, right? But each to their own. So I went and because I really like this coffee, right? I went and after got the machine, I went and like probably most people do the first time when you don't really know what you're doing, went to the supermarket and bought like a half kilo bag of these Vittoria coffee beans because I was like, yeah, I love Vittoria. This would be great. I'll make it at home. It'll be fantastic. And I just couldn't get it right. No matter what variable I changed, how I changed the grind, how I changed the dose of coffee, how I changed the timing of the shot, the temperature of the water, the pressure. it just wouldn't reach a level of pressure to extract the coffee right. It was horrible, and it was getting me down, frustrating me. Like, why is this so complicated if I've sort of gone through the process and I still can't figure it out? And you know, I ended up finding out that it's basically don't buy stale coffee beans from the supermarket. It doesn't matter how good you are as a barista, even trained barista, you know, can only do so much with what they're given, and it just wouldn't work. So I found out the importance of, you know, as I say, like, you know, study the craft, learn the craft, master the craft. So I studied it, you know, started looking at what's the importance of the beans, and learning that, you know, you should have beans that have been freshly roasted, but don't use them in the first sort of 7 days after they've been roasted, because they're still expelling a lot of, you know, CO2 gas, and it's a horrible coffee. So, you know, and anything that's like, you know, months old, it's no good. You know, some of that stuff's been sitting for 6 to 12 months on a supermarket shelf, or is pumped full of I think it's nitrogen they do that to extract the oxygen to expand or extend the shelf life, and they're just like, they're rotten beans, you know. And it's no disrespect to Vittoria, by the way. Like, I still love their coffee. Just, you know, if I bought it fresh from where it's roasted, I'm sure it'd be fantastic. You know, just to demonstrate the process. So found out, you know, basically get beans that have been roasted, and you know, maybe a prior couple of weeks. You know, not really, don't want to be having stuff that's roasted sort of, you know, months and months, you know, prior. So I went and bought a small bag of coffee beans that had been roasted 2-3 weeks earlier, and tried the same process again, and happy days, it worked. I had like the optimal pressure. You know, there was the pre-infusion pressure kicked in, then it spiked up to sort of around that sort of 10 to 11 bars of pressure, and then held, comes back and sort of sits at that 9 bars of pressure, and was just perfect, you know. And just I may be saying this stuff, and someone who knows this stuff in and out might be listening thinking, you don't know what you're talking about. So I'm learning, please forgive me if I make mistakes. And it was a whole different thing. The taste of the coffee, the way that the liquid from the coffee puck extracted, the viscosity, the way, the thickness, right? The look of the coffee, the timing of when the shot started to drip. You start to sort of get a feel for it, right? And it was such a smooth taste, such a different, beautiful taste. And since then, now understanding that process, I've gone out and tried a few different brands and blends and flavors from different places around Australia, and you still have to dial in every time, right, to get the right sort of coarse, the texture of the grind, I guess you'd call it. But once you sort of understand the weight for the amount of, you know, say a double shot of coffee, you've got the temperature right. All you have to do is get that grind right, and it's fairly consistent from there. And then time and time again, if you're buying the same beans, it doesn't take a lot of change in it, you know. So it's you know, when you get it right, ultimately, it's such a joy, because even in such a simple thing, and this is important to remember, right? It doesn't have to be something monumental or complex or something that no one has ever achieved in the world before, right? Something as simple as making a good coffee is immensely satisfying. Taking, as I say again, that time and respect due to the discipline and the art form. And when you honor it and you have that perfect cup of coffee in front of you, you're rewarded by that. You can taste such a difference in it. And it's a perfect example. If you look at for example, Japanese tea ceremonies, the discipline and the culture in that, and the importance of the steps in the process. Something simple, and if you can learn to respect that and master that, you can achieve joyous and wonderful results from something as simple as making a cup of coffee. I promise you. And the more that you get in that habit of doing these things and dialing it in, right, you start to build more confidence in your own competence, right? There's no value in doing what I was doing at first and looking at every task and being like, yeah, I got this. There is a level of, as I said, naivety around it, but there's, there's a smattering of arrogance in that too, but I wasn't, mature enough to know it at the time. Now I can appreciate and value those things, those simple things, because I understand the beauty of them, right? So I thought there's value in sharing this with you guys today, because ultimately, as I say, when you learn to master that, you know that you can consistently achieve results that you're after. And it all comes back to having the right tools and the right ingredients, right? The beans and the right espresso machine, and understanding and respecting the process, and appreciating it, giving it the respect it's due, and in time you'll have wonderful results because of it, and you'll be sitting there like I am in the morning, having a cup of coffee and being like, this is neat, I've taken some time to learn a new skill. I find joy in the process. I'm improving something that I'm getting better at, and in the end I get to drink a nice cup of coffee. What more could you want? Like, life's pretty good, right? Yeah. So that's what I want to share with you guys today. The smallest changes can have the greatest impact. Okay, that's what it's all about. Just dial it in. If you're trying to master, your craft, or improve in your career, in your personal life, your health, relationships, family life, whatever it is, small tweaks. Dial it in, and watch the results. And as you get things a little bit more refined and better, you'll see it'll start to feel more natural, and you'll understand the importance of why you do the things in the way that you do them. All right, thank you guys for being here. This is Wade Vincent on the Forever Better Academy podcast, and we are getting close to 50 episodes, guys. We're almost 1 year deep, so I'm very excited. We're getting there, and I got plenty more wonderful stories and lessons and tools and techniques for you guys that'll help you to become the best version of yourself on your journey of self-mastery. All right, as always, who could you become? I want you to take that and ask yourself, who could you become? You get to answer that. You decide, and you when you make that choice, you're on the right path to becoming that person. All right, guys, thank you again, and I look forward to talking next week. All right, stay safe. See you guys.